What is up, y'all? It's Pro Baller. We're back again with another video where today we got my 2023-2024 NFL playoff prediction. So, we got a lot of talented teams in this year's playoffs. We got teams like the Lions, the Rams, the Eagles look pretty good at the start of the season. The Bills got the second seed. The Browns have had a hell of a story this year. So, let's just get straight into it with our first matchup being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Philadelphia Eagles have both had their hiccups this season. Like I said in the intro, the Eagles, they started off very hot. They were the first seed. They were 10-1 at one point, and then the downfall just happened. I don't know what happened, but I do know recently that Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift all got injured. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries with their starting lineup. And Hurts being injured is a big problem for them. Their game is in just a couple days. This is being filmed on Thursday. So they got a lot of issues on their team right now. They've got to get this under control if they want to win and go far in the playoffs. So up next is the Buccaneers. Now the Buccaneers, like the Eagles, they've had their hiccups this season, but one thing that stayed constant the whole season for them is their defense. Their defense has looked astounding in my opinion. It's a top 10 defense also in my opinion. Their defense just looks phenomenal. Like, they've got guys like Avante David, Vita Vea. I feel like their scheme is just perfect. They even held the Lions to, I think, 20-something points, and the Lions have a top 3 offense in the league. So, the Buccaneers, they've got a lot of talent on that defense. Now, the problem for them is their run offense, their rushing game, and Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield hasn't had the worst season. He hasn't been too bad, but he has had games where it's cost them, and they could have got like a higher seed if he had played better in some of these teams. But that's the case with any team. But Baker Mayfield not had the worst season. He's been pretty solid for them. It appears they're looking to sign him back to an extension next season or try to get him back on the team. So we'll see where that goes next season. But as for this matchup, I think it could be very good. Could be honestly one of the most fun matchups in my opinion. Yeah, two teams who are haven't been the best recently. The Buccaneers had not the best game against the Panthers, who are the worst team in the league this year. So could be a very interesting matchup. But in my opinion, I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will upset the Eagles and win at Tampa. The Eagles, with all those injuries with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, they just simply don't have enough weapons to be able to keep up with the Buccaneers defense. I think the Buccaneers defense will have a field day. I think it will be a low-scoring game. Not to say that it can't be competitive, but I think it will be a low-scoring game. I think the Buccaneers will get it done at Tampa. Now, next up is my Detroit Lions versus the LA Rams. So, the Detroit Lions, they've looked really good this season. They've done their thing. They've had, like any other team, a couple of hiccups. Like, their defense hasn't looked the best at times. It's looked really bad in some games. Other games, it's looked really good. For example, against the Cowboys, they looked very good. But once again, their biggest problem is just the defense. The offense, phenomenal. Although recently, Goff and Ben Johnson have been having a lot of issues. Goff hasn't had, he did good against the Vikings, but they were already out of the playoffs, or pretty much out of the playoffs at that point. And he's had some games, like the Cowboys game, he looked pretty bad that game, in my opinion. He had points where if he could have made a slightly better throw or slightly better read, it would have got us a very important first down, or the 2-point conversion. Because, yes, although the Lions got screwed over and they should have won that game because the refs screwed them over, he could have got that 2-point conversion pass. It was too low to James Mitchell, and it cost the Lions the win, along with the terrible call from stupid Brad Allen. But I'm not going to get into that. On the flip side, we got the LA Rams, where Stafford is coming back to Detroit to try to get his first ever playoff win in Ford Field, which is crazy. That's the first for any team. So the Lions could be the first team to win at Ford Field, or it could be the Rams. It could be either one. which is sad that the Lions have never hosted a playoff game in Ford Field, but I'm not getting into that. Goff and Stafford, they both, Goff was a former Rams, Stafford former Lions, so they've got that little story going there about Goff trying to get revenge and Stafford trying to get it done back at home when he couldn't back at, in his time with the Lions. And in my opinion, this is a crucial game for Goff. Goff has every reason to show up and show out for this game. He's going against Sean McVay and the Rams, who, Sean McVay, not the Rams, but Sean McVay had a big problem with Goff and later in his, or at that point in Goff's career when he was about to be done with his time with the Rams. Sean McVay felt like he was not the guy for them, and he moved on from him. He kicked him to the curb, and the Lions and Dan Campbell, they got him, and he's on a little comeback story here. So Goff should have every reason to show up and show out. And same thing with Stafford. I mean, Stafford, he already got his ring, but he should also try to show up and show out, and try to win this game. Now, like I said earlier, the Lions are definitely going to struggle defensively in this game. Hopefully, Aaron Glenn draws up a pretty good scheme, brings in a lot of pressure against Stafford and the Rams, but I don't know if it will happen. I think it's going to be a very offensive game. But I do think that hopefully if the fans show up and show out, the team does, I think that my Detroit Lions will get their first playoff win in a while. They will beat the Rams at home. And in my opinion, the Lions are the underdogs going in this game. So I think the Lions will get the underdog victory against the Rams, just because the Rams have been playing so hot this season, or the past couple games. And the Lions, I think they're going to show up and show out, and they're going to get that dub against the Rams. Now, next up is the Dallas Cowboys versus the Green Bay Packers. This is a hell of a rivalry. This rivalry has been going on for a long time. Jordan Love has looked phenomenal recently. I think he's second in total passing touchdowns this season, so he's looked very good this season. But the Cowboys, I will say, have not looked that great. They barely beat the Lions thanks to the refs, and all the Cowboys fans are like, "Oh, get over it." But like Jay Monty said,
I don't stress when they go in my mirror if you gotta keep staring through.
So I'm not trying to worry about like the Cowboys fans. So I don't know. I think it'll be a very important game for both teams going forward, because the Cowboys, they've never been able to get over that hump recently of trying to get to the bowl. They've always just not done very good in the playoffs. And then the Packers, same thing. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, they couldn't get to the Super Bowl except for obviously in 2010 or 11. Sorry if I mistake that. But yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, he's gonna have to show up and show out. He's gonna be going against Micah Parsons in a very tough Dallas defense. The Cowboys, Dak has no reason to have a bad game. He's at home, and they're undefeated at home this season. The Packers defense hasn't looked great recently. I mean, they did against the Bears, but against the Bears, they haven't looked good in a while. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a very great game. I think it'll be a very chippy game. I think there will be a lot of trash talk between these two teams. But I think that the Cowboys are going to get it done against the Packers. I think the Packers could definitely... There's a possibility that they could win this game, but I think all the signs just point to the Cowboys winning. Jordan Love's going to have to go against Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and I don't think the Packers' O-line is good enough, especially with David Bakhtiari out, to get that dub for them in the playoffs. So, now moving on to the AFC, we got the Texans versus the Browns. Should be a very good matchup. The Texans have looked very good this year with Stroud. In my opinion, he should be the MVP, and I know that might come out as an outrageous take, but he has looked phenomenal this season. He's played phenomenal with not a lot of great guys on that offense. He's molded with very good chemistry with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. They've looked really good. And on the flip side, you got the Browns, who are kind of like the Cinderella team in this year's playoffs, because Nick Chubb went out with a horrific injury. Prayers up to Nick Chubb. I know that he's going through a recovery right now. Hopefully he'll be able to play football again and get back to his old self. But yeah, I mean, the Browns, they've dealt with a lot of adversity this year. They're riddled with so many injuries. But Joe Flacco has brought them to the playoffs. Their defense has brought them to the playoffs. Here's my problem with this game. I think that Joe Flacco, although he's looked very good this year, he's going to struggle against the Texans defense. Yeah, Texans defense hasn't looked like anything special, but Will Anderson, I think, will have a pretty solid game. Yeah, Will Anderson will have a great game. They've got guys like Derek Stingley, who hasn't looked terrible. Petrie has not looked bad. Although Will Anderson is questionable, same thing with Grenard, but I mean, we'll see what happens there. In my opinion, I think it's going to be one of the best games in this year's playoffs, just because the Texans with a young team with Stroud, and then you got Joe Flacco on the other hand, the veteran, the comeback player of the year, in my opinion. He should win the comeback player of the year. You've got him there. I think it's going to be a great matchup, but in the end, we're going to keep going with the trend that's been going so far, and I think that the Texans are going to win against the Browns. I think it'll be a very good game down to the wire, but I think the Texans will pull it out. I think Stroud will get his first ever playoff win in his rookie year. I think he's already having a great rookie year, and I think this will just add on to it. I think they'll get the dub against the Browns, and they'll keep the trend going of the top seed, the home teams winning. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Dolphins. Now, Kansas City, let's just say, oh my lord, they've had a terrible season. Whether it's Kadarius Toney dropping passes to the constantly talking about Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce having a bad season, Mahomes being in a terrible spot right now. They've had a really bad season. The Chiefs just have had nothing going for them. And to make matters even worse, they have Tyreek Hill coming back to Arrowhead to try to get that dub against his former team in the Chiefs. So the Dolphins, they've actually not looked terrible this season. They've had actually a couple games where they've not done the best against teams over 500, which is scary considering they're playoff teams. So the Dolphins have really got to get their act together. But they've got so many playmakers on their team. Tua hasn't had a bad season. Tyreek Hill's looked really good. Jalen Waddle's looked really good as well. Their defense at times has looked solid. So I think it will be a shootout. It should be. Or it could go to a low-scoring game too. Tua has not been playing great recently. Neither has Mahomes and the Chiefs. But, and I know this might come off as a hot take, but I want to say that the Chiefs are going to win, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I almost want to put the Chiefs through just because playoff Mahomes is a totally different monster. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with some crazy. I know y'all are not going to anticipate me picking this, but I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win. I don't know what it is. I think that the Chiefs are finally going to get in the rhythm here in the playoffs when it matters most, or at least for the wild card. I don't know about the future rounds, but I think for the wild card, there's a possibility they could win. Yes, their receiving core is terrible, except for Travis Kelce, but playoff Mahomes is a totally different monster. And with the Dolphins defense, you do not want to go against playoff Mahomes. I think this will be a very good game, but I think the Chiefs will win it in the end. Next up, you got the Buffalo Bills against the Steelers. Now, this will also be hopefully a very good matchup. The Steelers, they've got a lot of issues. The Steelers have had a lot of issues this season. They somehow managed to get above 500 again. I don't know how they did. But you got Mike Tomlin having another great season. But the big problem for them right now is their quarterback play and TJ Watt being out. TJ Watt being out is a huge thing for them. It's a huge disadvantage because he is a huge part of that defense. He is kind of the life and blood of that defense. he keeps that defense going through all the adversity. He is their best player on defense, their best player on the whole team. So, in my opinion, I don't see a way that the Steelers are going to get out of this with a win. I think that the Steelers are going to lose to the Bills. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think the Steelers will keep it maybe a little bit competitive, but I think the Bills will win it at home. I just don't think the Steelers are going to get it done with TJ Watt being out and Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Now that we have the wild card out of the way, now we can get into the really interesting stuff, which is the divisional round. We got teams like the 49ers that we can finally talk about and the Ravens. So, first matchup, the Niners, Buccaneers. All right, let's just go do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'll explain it. The Niners, they've looked literally like the best team in football this whole season. Brock Purdy has had a little bit of struggles recently, especially against the Ravens game where they lost, but he's looked pretty solid. He's honestly, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback this season. And the Buccaneers, yes, their defenses look great, but Baker Mayfield is going to get slaughtered by the Niners defense if this matchup happens. So, like I did earlier, just the Niners are going to win. And no offense to Buccaneers fans, you guys, their defense looks great, but it's just an unfortunate matchup in this bracket. Like, I just don't see a way that the Buccaneers will win. Next up, we got a rematch of the Lions-Cowboys. Now, this is going to be at home again for the Cowboys. The Lions, they showed up and showed out defensively against the Cowboys in that regular season game. And you know what? This may come off as a hot take, but I think that the Lions are going to get it done against the Cowboys. I think they will move on to the conference chip. I think they're going to play with so much anger against the Cowboys. The Cowboys and the fans were like, "Oh yeah, look, we got away with the win." And Dak Prescott, who I was a major fan of, I've lost, well, not a major fan, I respect him, but I've lost so much respect for Dak Prescott. I was saying, oh, it's a part of football that the Lions lost and they got screwed over.
Obviously, I heard the controversy, saw the controversy on that call, but that's football. 23 seconds was left on the clock. I was ready to go back out there and give it another shot, so that's kind of the name of the game.
Come on, bro. That was literally the stupidest win, but this isn't a rant video, this is an NFL playoff video. So, the Lions, I think they'll get it done against the Cowboys this time around, and when it matters most in the playoffs. Next up, we got the Chiefs versus the Bills. This is a matchup we've seen so many times. The Bills have not been able to get over that hump and get to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if they will this season, but I think it'll be a very good matchup. Mahomes, once again, playoff Mahomes is a totally different monster. But in my opinion, I don't think that playoff Mahomes will be able to get it done this season. I don't think he's going to repeat, and I think that the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs this time around. It's going to be at Buffalo. It's going to be a tough game for Mahomes and his receiving core, and honestly the defense too, because Josh Allen, yeah, he's not had the best season in my opinion. In my opinion, he's very overrated, but he is still a top 10 quarterback at least a top 10 quarterback. So I think he'll get it done against the Chiefs. I don't think this will be a great game just because we've seen it so many times. I think it will kind of be lackluster, and I think it'll be a low-scoring game because I think the Chiefs' defense will be the one thing that shows up for them this game, and maybe even Mahomes. But next up, we got the Texans versus the Ravens. CJ Stroud, if he ends up in this matchup, it's going to be a very tough game for him. Ravens defense has looked great all season. Kyle Hamilton is injured, but he probably will be healed by this point. It's a knee injury. So Lamar has looked great. It looks like he wants to go all the way. The Texans are just a very young team. I don't see a way that they could win this. I think they could keep it maybe competitive, but I don't see them winning. I think the Ravens are going to win, and it's going to be the Ravens and the Bills in the conference chip. Now, we got the conference chip with the Lions, Niners, Bills, Ravens, but firstly, let's get to the Lions, Niners. Should be a great game. if you know Decatur 443 or Decatur Niners, is his new name. He has started a channel. Go check him out. I'll leave the link in the description. But the Lions and Niners, they've not versed each other in a while. I think the last time they versed each other was 2020. And both teams have improved significantly. The Niners, they were just coming off a Super Bowl loss the last time they versed the Lions, and the Lions were in the trenches. They're terrible. They were at the bottom of the league. They were absolutely atrocious. And this time around, they're both very good teams. Now the thing with this matchup, the Lions' offense, both teams' offenses are phenomenal, very good. But my problem this game is going to be the defense for the Lions. The Niners just have so many weapons. They got Brock Purdy at quarterback, who's phenomenal. CMC, phenomenal. George Kittle, phenomenal. Debo Samuel, sorry, I had a flight reaction moment there. Debo Samuel, phenomenal. Brandon Ayuk has looked phenomenal. Like, they have so many weapons. Their O-line, I will say, is not the best. So if the Lions do want to win, they'd have to get a lot of pressure on Purdy. He doesn't perform the best under pressure, but, I mean, he's had games where he overcomes it. He's kind of like an improviser, so he can get out of the pocket and make plays. But if the Lions would want to win this game, they'd have to get a lot of pressure, which I'm not sure if Aaron Glenn will do. So, in my opinion, I think, sadly, this would be the end of the Lions' journey this season. If they do go against the Niners will get in this playoff bracket to the Super Bowl. I think it is definitely possible for the Lions to go to the Super Bowl, but they have to not versus the Niners. They have to, go against somebody else, because I think the Lions could beat the Cowboys, the Buccaneers. They already beat the Buccaneers earlier this season. And I don't know. I mean, they're going to verse the Rams in the first round, which I think they'll win. The Eagles is maybe the only other team that poses a threat, because the Lions suck against mobile quarterbacks. But I don't know. The Lions going against the Niners, it's not a favorable matchup for them, so I got the Niners winning that one. Now on the other side, we got the Bills versus the Ravens. The Bills haven't looked the best this season. The Ravens have looked the best this season. They've looked very good. Lamar's looked phenomenal. Just, I don't know. Something about the Bills this season has not been right. They almost dropped out of the playoffs. They were almost in the hunt. I think they actually were in the hunt for a short moment. So I don't know. I don't think the Bills are mentally there. I don't think they have the talent. They have all the talent in the world to succeed. But mentally, I don't think they're there. I think this will be, sadly, another year of the Bills just coming up short. And I think the Ravens will get it done at their stadium. So, for the Super Bowl in this bracket, we got the Niners and the Ravens. They made it this far. And we've seen this matchup earlier this season. The Niners, golly, they look terrible. Decatur was shambles. He felt so bad during that game. I'm pretty sure the whole team did. The whole team just performed terrible. Brock Purdy had 4 picks. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen from him. The Vikings game was probably second. So Brock Purdy should be an interesting game for him if this matchup does happen. The Ravens, they've just looked so good this season. In my opinion, I think that the Ravens want to win it all. I think this is the year, and I think that the Baltimore Ravens will be this year's Super Bowl champions. I think they've looked so good this season. They've looked like every time they've gone against a contender, the Niners, the Lions, the Dolphins, they've looked great. There's no reason for them to not be picked in this, in my opinion. They've looked so good. Not to say that the Niners have looked bad. They've looked very good as well. They're the second best team in my opinion in the league right now. But I think the Ravens, they've looked just so good. I don't think the Niners are going to be able to contain Lamar. And yeah, I think the Ravens will be this year's Super Bowl champions. Thank y'all for watching. We got that Lions-Rams live stream coming up. My first playoff game I'll ever be streaming for the Lions. So, should be a very good matchup. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'll see y'all next time.